I'm John Engel, or many of you know me as John Edward Engel, and my dad, John H. Engel, is sitting beside me. He really should be doing this tour. I'd like you to raise your hand anytime if you have questions, and I'd like to keep it fairly informal. My dad, John, his sister, Alma, his older sister, to keep him in line, and his brother, Harold, are up here. They're experts. My brother, Gene, is certainly an expert in the properties in this area. But all of you are experts for your own family, and we have a lot of people from the Engel printing business. We have Charlie Engel in the back of the bus. We have Dennis Engel beside him, and Dennis's son Jeremy and daughter Tanya. Are there any others from your family on the bus? Charlie Jr. And Lois is Charlie's aunt. So and then we have a number of J. Martin Engel's family on the bus, another big family. Let's see all your hands, all from that family group. There are 3 of you. And then we have some others that you'll get to know along the way. Go ahead. Oh, descendants of John Musser Engel, John M. Engel. Let's see your hands. Okay, so about 6 or 8 of those. As we step back in time 250 years now, I'd like you to picture the area as it was. The Indians were here first, of course, and there were complicated movements by the Indians that I don't pretend to understand totally, and anyone that wants to correct me on that, feel free to, but there were Kanoi Indians here. There were Susquehannock Indians here, and after the Indians there were French fur traders such as Peter Bazilian and Lachort. And Peter Bazilian used an old Indian road between Downingtown and Bainbridge that was called Peter's Road, and we're traveling along, as I understand it, part of that original road as we're on Donegal Springs Road here today. So that was a very important road. Then the Scots-Irish came in and settled and built this Donegal Presbyterian Church. So we'll come out here to Colebrook Road, and then we'll turn left on that for a short stretch, and then stay on Donegal Springs Road. As I understand it, Peters Road went from Downingtown, Pennsylvania to Bainbridge, Pennsylvania, and was called Peters Road, using an old Indian road, and it passed through this area here.
And they took the ferry.
And then they took the ferry in Bainbridge, which was Logan's Ferry at that time. So Peters Road went right actually down to Bainbridge, and it went through along the Kanoi Creek, and you'll see where Hans Engel's property was, where the Nisley Vineyards are now. And Patrick Campbell had a tavern down there for the fur traders, and it was an important place to be at that time. This Donegal Presbyterian Church was established around, the sign says before 1721. We know that the Scots-Irish came in the between 1710 and 1720, and here's an old schoolhouse on the left. The Donegal area was named for County Donegal in Ireland, where the Scots-Irish came from. On the right, you'll see the Donegal Presbyterian Church and Cemetery, and we'll pass by that. Behind that is the Simon Cameron Estate, and it's now an inn. It's a nice place to stay in a historic area. No, we're not stopping.
Slow down.
Just keep going.
Am I going too fast?
No, this is fine. This is great. The Penns were happy to have the Scots-Irish in this area because they were a good buffer between the Indians. They were feisty, you might say, by nature, and as opposed to the German-speaking Swiss Mennonite settlers who really weren't very good at fighting off the Indians. Before 1729, this area was part of Chester County, and Lancaster County was split off at that time. Over to the left, just before the airport, way back, it's indicated on your map as Y9. It's the Hershey Homestead. You really can't see it very well from this road, but that's Pauline Hershey Engel's ancestors. That is the Engel printing family's Hershey homestead. Many Engels and Engels related and other families related to the Engels lived along Donegal Springs Road and still do to this day. That was the former home of Eli Hoffman, who went to Kansas with this 1879 and 1880s migration. Several of his daughters became foreign missionaries. We're headed into Maytown. Maytown was a much healthier place to live than down along the river where the Ulrich Engel family settled. It was swampy down there. There were a lot of diseases, probably malaria and other diseases down there. So people moved to a higher ground in Maytown.
On the left is the school. I spent 1 year in high school in that building. The other 3 years were at Bainbridge, which we'll hear about later on. Coming into our view is the Maytown Square, the famous Maytown Square. I see they're getting ready for right here.
In the center of the square in Maytown, and by the way, the three Engel boys, Ulrich Jr. and Hans and Jockli, loved to come into Maytown for the tavern and the dancing and the festivities. One time on the way back, Hans said, "I think we've grieved Mother again. We ought not to grieve her so much." At any rate, Ulrich Jr. was probably the wildest of the three, and he was very small, lightweight, and he was the champion maypole climber. It's said that he used to have ashes in his pockets that he put on his hands so he could climb higher and faster in the maypole contest. We're on the Vinegar Ferry Road. That name is interesting. You might wonder why the name vinegar is a common household product. Well, it was really named after a Swiss German man who spelled his name W-E-N-I-K-E-R, but if you pronounce what we'd say Weniger, it comes out vinegar. Now you can see the hills of York County across the Susquehanna River, and you realize how close the Engels were to York County, and it was just a short ferry ride across the river, which is why some of them moved there and intermarried with there, and why they had church members there as well. Now we're crossing River Road and proceeding on directly ahead on Vinegar Ferry Road, and we're getting very close to the place that the Engel family approached either in the fall of 1754, because they arrived in Philadelphia on September 30th, October 1st, 1754, and we don't know whether they came here that winter yet or whether they stayed with relatives in other parts of Lancaster County, but certainly by the spring of 75 they were settled down here in this area. Now we're turning left on Depot Road, and we'll come up to a chain link fence bounding the property, which I believe is owned by Armstrong World Industries. But a cemetery is about a 10-minute walk through a field. My father corrects me that this is not a cemetery, it is a family burial ground. When Ulrich and Anna were here, they had 7 children. Catherine, the oldest, married Peter Whitmer from 10 miles south of here in Manor Township. Anna married Henry Grove, and we'll go to her place just about a mile upriver after we leave here. Ulrich Jr. married Magdalena Bixler, and they lived here on this farm. The next child was Hans. He married Elizabeth Schock, and that's the next place we'll be going after the Groff Cemetery, is the Hans Engel place. 2 sisters, Barbara and Christina, married 2 Musser brothers, Benjamin and Jacob, from Manor Township. We won't be seeing Manor Township sites today. That'll have to be another tour some other time, maybe. And the youngest then was Jacob, or Jockli, who was only about a year old when the Engel family arrived here in Pennsylvania. So the Engels and their 7 children were here in 1754 or early 1755. This burial ground is the only part of the original Engel property on this side of the fence. The rest is behind the fence. The buildings were down there to the left of the river, of the burial ground as you face the river, and the property went over as far as the creek, which you'll see on the right, or which you'll be aware of on the right as you walk down. Was a falls called Wildcat Falls, and it's still on the map as Wildcat Run.
compensation in some way.
And they publish a draft of the genealogy that's thick that you'll get in your bag when you register for the reunion. It's like what's on the website, but
Great.
that's tingles your spine. So
Yeah.
it was pretty big in the pictures from the 1930s. Look at the year they came.
That's one, I know. Possibly that's not true.
It says 1753, which is wrong. It says 8 children. Now they did have 8 children, but we don't know.
You get the view from this side.
Oh, I believe you're there. But family tradition is just that.
This is what he was referring. This we think was the tombstone of
I don't know if they're here
Dexter,
because
who was Ulrich Jr.'s wife.
Gene placed them upright at some place.
In 1978, when the church was getting ready, the Brethren of Christ Church was getting ready for their centennial, the wall of this cemetery over there where Martin Engel and Mrs. Detweiler and so on are standing, that wall was broken out. The groundhogs had a racetrack in there. And there was a walnut tree came up right in that wall and broke the wall open. So you see this tree here. At that time, about 20 years ago, that tree was only about 6 inches around. We decided to keep that tree and take the other one out so that this would be far enough away from the wall and wouldn't destroy the wall again, but I don't know what's going to happen later. Over there's that little box I was talking about for registering. Now, here you see the 4 stones. This one, the second one, says, "Hier ruhen die Gebeine von Ulrich Engel," and so on. Here lie the remains, the bones really, literally, of Ulrich Engel. And this one, which is an eyesore to me and to some guy, or maybe lady, I don't know, but I'm sure they broke that off and it's in the Bixler, because she was a Bixler from York County. And I've talked to John Bixler at Messiah Village, and he said he would try and trace out who took that stone, but no one ever confessed to it yet. Now, the other one over there is Anna Shelley. She, one of his daughters was married to Shelley. And over here is Jeroen de Gebeine von Stauffer. I forget the first name. Abraham Stauffer and his wife. Now, as far as we know, those are the only stones. And those little ones up there are the footstones that they used to have at the end of the graves. And the other 2 I was mentioning about is this one. We don't know why this stone is here, but we have an idea. It might have been Grandpa, or, well, it would have been Dad, and maybe their mother, I don't know. So there's a lot of things in history that we don't know. Therefore, we make them up. Like the man said in Cameltown, the Indians used to have a little village here, didn't they? Well, we don't know. Well, it's easy. We'll just say so and nobody will contest it. And I mentioned about this wall by funds which were gathered for the Yuckelingle stone over in the East Donegal Cemetery, which we'll see later on. From funds that were gathered and left over, this wall was repaired, and I can't give all the repairs, but now I see what's happening down there. It's coming apart again. I don't intend to be in the group who fixes that up. I guess that's all I have to say now. Did I say this? The reason we have the privilege today of coming into this cemetery is because of a little note in the deed when this property was transferred years ago. The right of perpetual entry for the Engel family. That gives us the right to come in here today, and Armstrong Cork honors that.
Time for a couple of short questions.
John mentioned, be sure to get on the others. Be sure to take a walk around the other side to get the inscription on the wall from the people that built
On the outside.
the wall here and took care of the grave.
We're back now, and the others could have up to 5 minutes before you start.
Actually, this whole portion in here overlooks the tall tree.
John, the question was asked, when did the name change from EL to LE? Can you speak to that at all?
In the second generation, the first generation of Engels that came over here spelled it E-N-G-E-L, which is the German. These people wanted to get away from the German influence, and so they anglicized the spelling of the name, and that was done primarily in the second and third generation, and anglicized it to L-E.
I'll just say that in my book I use the convention of EL for the children of Ulrich and Anna, and then I use LE after that. Although in their own family Bibles, if they were writing in German, they'd use EL for another few generations, but that's just the way I decided to do it.
Yeah, maybe someone already asked, where was the homestead from here?
The homestead from here was directly across the fence down that way, about 55 feet probably. And there were remains of an orange cellar. Some other remains up there into the 30s. My dad remembers visiting that.
The rest of the tract was which direction?
Well, after this way,
Back behind the fence. The rest of the track was behind the fence.
And the creek is this way?
And the creek is that tree line on your left.
And the Susquehanna River's what? Less than a half mile that way.
Much closer than that, probably.
Less than a half mile right that way.
Much closer. And the railway ran along there, and the canal before the railway. Okay, back to the bus.
I would think it'd be, I can't speak to the rest.
we were talking about the canals and the railroad here. I grew up with my uncle Abram Engel, who lived upriver a mile and a half, 2 miles at the border of Kenoi Township. My dad died when I was 5 years old, and we were farmed out to relatives, and I went to Uncle Abe Engel's place. He was Uncle Abe to me through the Huffmans rather than through the Engels, however. Now, what I wanted to say, I've forgotten. You know,
Uncle Abe remembers the canal.
yeah, Uncle Abe used to talk about the canal when he was a boy. They'd come down here swimming in the canal.
Left here.
Now, I looked through Uncle Abe's deeds and papers sometimes, kind of surreptitiously, and he didn't know it. But we looked through those papers, and I saw on there they sold this to the water rights. And I asked later that what those water rights were, oh, we don't know.
Not this lane with the mailbox, but the next road right
I
after.
said, I'll tell you what the water rights were.
Right at the bottom of the
That's
hill
when
here.
the canal was built from
Before the railroad, right here.
on down
Yeah.
to, well, I guess Baltimore. Anyhow, they did have water rights, and then the river, or the water rights. Yeah, then the canal was existent for a short number of years until the railroads came in the 1830s, 40s, and the railroad followed the water rights of the canal. So the canal and then the railroad were pretty close together. Go ahead.
We're approaching the Groff Cemetery on the right. This is where Anna Engel and Henry Grove, formerly Groff, anglicized to Grove. It's where their property was, and the cemetery there contains the stone of Henry. I presume Anna's buried there, but we don't find her stone today. And we'll just slowly go past it. It is a public cemetery, and it's right here. Just, I'm sorry, no, I'm wrong. I'm wrong. Where did Dave Ayers live? Where did Dave Ayers live? We passed the place where Dave Ayer and his family lived.
I think they have the building cleared away.
Just up here past this trees.
And then just stop where we can see that if there's no one. Yeah, but we won't get out.
Groff Cemetery.
On your right is the Groff Cemetery. Henry Kreider's ancestor is Henry Grove in there, and Heinrich Musser. Henry Musser is an ancestor to many of us, and he comes down from Christina, married to Jacob Musser. His stone is in there as well. Now there is no gate to the cemetery, so if you come here, you have to climb over the wall to take any photographs. But it is a public place, so you can come back on your own. You want to talk about these places? I'm losing my voice.
Up here also on the right, you'll see what is known as, or what was known as Shock's Mill. The mill became known as Shock's Mill, and Hannes and Yockley both married Shock's sister.
Straight through.
Two-story building, two-story home here. We just passed was a let's see, the two-story building that we passed was all the remains of the mill.
The other
Third story was added.
It's Shuck's Mills.
We're turning right onto Angle
Stop
Road.
just around the turn.
Dave Engel's property was the one here on the left. The old house was
Where the silo is.
where the small silo is over here.
That's where I grew up as a boy.
That's where my father grew up, and it was the site of many of the old Engel, many of the River Brethren
Hey,
church meetings.
you can see the site where those stones are buried. You see that depression in there?
Are you sure that's it?
I think so.
The cemetery was located over here on the corner.
There's a depression there, and my guess is that's where the burial, where there's 14 stones.
About 20 years ago, the stones were about 6 inches under, and we dug up all the stones and buried them in one site. And my father says it's the site where the grass isn't growing there, in that area. At some point, they should be restored.
Hans' son Jacob, known as River Jacob, bought the land from the river all the way up to Stackstown Road on this side of Engel Road in 1802. There's an Engel, Jacob Engel lives along this road, and it's been in his family for over 200 years. Some of the names of the people that lived down here were quite colorful, and Dad wants to tell us about that.
What do you mean?
Beardy Abe, River Abe.
Well, I'm not sure which was River Abe. Probably my Uncle Abe's father was River Abe, and then there was Orchard Abe and Beardy Abe. I remember Beardy Abe. He had a great big beard. He lived in the house that's in here to our upper left, and he died when I was in my early teens. He was an old.
Is this Joyce?
Arlene Engel Brownsberger lived on the left there. We just passed. That's one of the photographs, I think. And we're on Stackstown Road, headed toward the Nisley Vineyard property, which represents and stands on the property where Hans Engel lived.
Those of us from the David Shelley Engel line might also note that in the old Morris Engel book, it's noted that our grandfather, David Shelley Engel, and his wife lived on this Hannes Engel farm. I haven't found any records to support that. I guess I have to talk to Gene about that. But the book said that he lived there for a year before he and Anna moved out to Kansas.
On the right is the farm where the Daniel Engel family lived. Eli Engel's first wife came from the farm on this family, and many other people at the reunion come from this Daniel Engel. Actually, the house was built by Hans's grandson, Christian Engel. Hans married Elizabeth Schock. Hans was a deacon in the River Brethren Church. I believe it was 1769 that Hans bought the property on which Jockeli lived, where the Magdalena house is, and later he bought this property, which we're going to see now, the property on which the Nisley Vineyards are located. The property included the tavern run by Patrick Campbell near the Kenoi Indian town along Peters Road, which led to Bainbridge. This is where Richard Nisley, the owner of Nisley Vineyards, lives. This property was featured in the film called Silence at Bethany, which was shown on public television a number of years ago. It's a story about a Mennonite congregation, and it was filmed here before a lot of renovations were made on this house. It'd be very interesting to watch again, and I recommend it to you.
You go straight off to the left, you see the house. It's been restored on the top. It's been very well done, and people have enjoyed living in this house. People have hosted us as a family for quite a while. It was built in 1839
by Christian
Engel. If you look almost diagonal up the hill, you'll find at the top of the hill what appears to be a monument. The Nisley family found and worked with John Engel here on restoring the gravestones of the Engels that were on the site here. Things that we've tried to do as an organization for the Engel family is to honor several people in the community as people for the work that they have done, or for the hospitality that they have rendered to us as a family. This family out here has made us welcome all the time to like I said, visit their home, to visit the grave site up the hill. They've done a lot for us as a family. And so on behalf of the Engel family, Joyce, we would like to present you a Friend of the Family Award. It's presented to the J. Richard Nisley family for their preservation and restoration of our former Engel homes, farms, and the cemetery, and for your hospitality to us as the Engel family. Would you like to say a few words? Press the button. Wait for a couple seconds.
Hi. You happen to have the
shyest member of our family in front of you. But my mother is undergoing chemotherapy, and she could not be here today. My father, of course, passed away 3 years ago. I just wanted to say that I've always been proud of my parents. They taught me that stewardship is an important aspect of ownership. And we don't expect to be the last family who owns this property. My thought was, if there were some children on the bus, I could perhaps inspire them to think about becoming an owner in the future. Thank you very much.
On behalf of the Engel family.
This is such a beautiful place.
Very neat.
Teresa's tour guide says we're not permitted to get off here, but I just got permission for us to get photos.
Yeah. She took us up there on the hill when we.
Yeah, I've been up there.
Brought a tour guide.
Yeah.
This is Hans's home.
Hans.
Yeah.
There goes Hans. Hans had Anna marry John Heise. He had Jacob, which was River Jacob, that bought that land where Uncle Abe's place was.
Okay.
Elizabeth married John Gish. Hannes married Esther Long and lived here. His son Christian built this house.
Okay.
So Hannes and his descendants are up on the hill.
Okay.
And Veronica married John Hoffman. That's where the Hoffmans come in. That's
okay,
how
sure.
And this is how I come from Hannes.
Okay, and this is back what vintage? This is
1839. That's the marker up on. It's on the.
We're not going up the cemetery, right?
No.
Yeah.
Where's the winery from here?
Right down that road, but the bus can't go down it.
Okay, I can't get oriented unless I find the winery.
But you come down look on the map, you'll see that if we
Yeah.
go left, we'd be right at Yockley's house, but we have to go all around to get the bus turned right. And tell them it's Y3.
Y3 on the map.
It's right at the top of the hill.
Over on the right-hand side, behind that tree line, is the home of Booker Jake. If you've read the old Engel book, Booker Jake, and he went to Ohio. His son or his daughter married a Gish, and the Gishes then moved to Kansas. There's you can't see the barn from this approach.
Okay. Then left on Bosler. Are you telling me?
As we get on down here,
We're approaching what's known as the Magdalena House. This is, of course, where little Yockley, the youngest son, lived. The property was built before Jacob lived there. It was built around the 1750 time period, and he bought this property in the 1780s. And to help him, my notes are in the bus. I have to wait till everyone gets up. Take the mic. That's on your tour guide.
Well, that was Cyrus.
This one here, Y3.
Gene said he wouldn't say anything either, but I know how he works.
Okay, this is it. I've never been here
Haven't you?
before. No, I haven't.
Yesterday it was all full of trucks coming in and out.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, it's right by the creek.
This is the Kenoi Creek, where the baptism probably took place by tradition.
Yeah.
Which certainly was handy, wasn't it?
Nice, yeah. Immersion.
Triene immersion. This is the Kenoi Creek. This is where we think the original baptisms probably took place, and it was the upper room in that house where the first love feast was held.
Well, the old house here, the stone one, apparently was built a longer time ago. Now you see the end of this house is a brick. That was added on later. And the house is a total wreck inside. And it was outside too until the Vincents fixed up the outside, repointed it, and the dormer windows fixed up, and I guess the roof. And now I understand that the people who bought this place, they were two doctors from Hershey Med, and they're going to fix up the old house for living quarters. I don't know if they have done anything. I saw a sign back there. It looks like they're working on it now. The other house is probably the house that Yaakov or Jacob lived in most of the time. Oh, the reason this is called the Magdalena house is because his daughter Magdalena, who had taken care of him for many years, she lived in this house apparently, and she outlived her father. Now the other house burned down. It was, I believe, a frame structure. It burned down in, what was it, 1860 something, and it was rebuilt. And when the Vincents came in, oh, this house that was built by Jacob and Elizabeth, his wife, and they had done a lot of work in fixing it up.
Yaakov and Veronica had 7 children that grew to adulthood. 2 of their daughters were brain damage from Jimson weed poisoning. When they were younger, they got into that. And Magdalena, of course, was mentioned. Then they had 4 sons. They had Booker Jake, Weaver John, Daniel, who moved up to the Hummelstown area near where the Indian Echo Caverns are, and Henry, who, as I understand, stayed here. And one of Henry's children, Jacob M., built this house. Another son from that Henry was Jesse Myers Engel, the missionary to Africa.
Came out, you see that one window goes down to the porch window. That's a door, and the preacher is supposed to have come out and gave his message from that point. Now, he wasn't a George Whitfield, I'm sure, but he must have had a good voice to speak loud enough that everybody down here could hear. And everybody that talked about the age of this house always points that out, about that dormer window there that they could walk out.
They of course had church services in the buildings there.
Church services, the smaller church services were held in homes, and the larger ones were held in barns. The original burial ground for this site was up over that hill to the left, and we'll be passing the Cyrus Engel home there, which is where Fuller John lived, and the burial ground was over there. So.
Your bell. Actually, this group is pretty cooperative. It's just that they're slow moving.
Oh, straight into the bushes. Yeah, right. The driver was joking. He said, "Shall we go straight into those bushes now?" We're coming into Maytown on the Stackstown Road. Stackstown has had several names in its history. On some old maps you'll see Ridgeville, and I believe Labada was another name for it, but it's Labedo, excuse me. And it's called Stacktown on the map without an S, but it's called Stackstown when anybody in the Engel family says it. 6.
Why 6?
John Myers is buried here somewhere, I think.
Now, where you want to go is up that path to the left. And
my father and my mother and my grandpa and my grandma.
Uncle Abe, that Daddy grew up with, Abram and Lottie Engel. That's from that farm we pointed out there here. And
I think John Lindemith bought Orchard Abe's in Abilene.
Now I'll show you where you're headed, and you can start people up there. See that small sandstone marker about 3/4 of the way up there on the left. That's Yockley Engel's burial marker.
Yeah, okay, yep. You want to take that? Let me see something here.
That's the actual marker for Yockley, and this is the English translation.
Here is
Magdalena. That's Magdalena, the Magdalena house.
Here's Veronica, and Lizzie would be the other one that was damaged.
This row of stones was taken out.
I don't know.
Daddy, explain that on the for the people, if you would.
I guess it was John over at the other place said the family burial plot was over in the other farm. I think that this row of stones was from that other burial plot. You see, these are brownstone, and the other stones around here are limestone or sandstone. So that means that this row of stones was taken out of that other burial plot, a family burial plot. I don't like to call them cemeteries, I guess they were, but now this first one is Jacob Engel, der alte Gras, the old man, and here's the English translation of it. The reason this one has the flat stone is because in 1978, when the church had the 200th centennial of the Brethren in Christ Church, this is a stone I said they had gathered funds for, and there were some funds left over, and then they used those funds for the restoration of the wall of the other cemetery. So this is where Yockley, the man we call Yockley, who was the preacher, the so-called founder of the Brethren in Christ Church. Translated, it says, the gravestone inscription, here rests an old father, an old patriarch, whose labor in the work of God was with diligence. Now he is in his father's land. Jacob Engel was his name. His name is now much better. He lived and died a true Christian. He brought his age to 3 months, 79 years, 5 days, and now loves Jesus in eternal life, now lives in eternal rest. So this is an English translation of the German on the stone.
Did you say 75 years?
79 years, a little bit older than, not quite as old as you and I are.
In the 1850s, there was a group that built a church building, and that was too progressive for the rest of the River Brethren, so they kicked them out, and they're called the United Zion's Children, or Brinzers. And in the 1860s, the River Brethren formally changed their name to Brethren in Christ when it came to registering for conscientious objection to the Civil War, so they're known as the Brethren in Christ. So the River Brethren led to Old Order River Brethren, led to Brinzers, led to Brethren in Christ. Brethren. You know Teresa?
Yeah.
She, she did this with Charlie and Charlie's people,
really?
Charlie's nephew and his. So, but I decided I could go crazy trying to show people all these places and not stick together in any way. So I just wanted to focus on the stuff I knew well anyway, and that interests me most, which is the first generation, and everybody else can figure out their own lines after that. But it's nice to have this because you can take it around. And the only time I ever really learned my way around here was yesterday, driving around trying to figure out this darn tour. My dad always drove before, and I just always said, "Oh, that's neat," but I never really figured out how you get from here to there.
Now today you know, right?
Today I know.
You live in Maine, huh?
I live in Maine.
Wow.
I was saying the only time I ever learned my way around this area really to know it to drive myself was yesterday when I was driving out this tour, because I always rode with Daddy or Gene before.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Sure.
The bridge is at.
Okay, so everybody here is the, well, really it's sort of the last one, but we're going to sing it first, and then there's a little bit of history in the song, but it goes like this. Oh, when the Angles came to town, when the Angles came to town. Everybody, let's do that. Oh, when the Angles came to town, when the Angles came to town. I'll give you the rest. Oh, there were so many of us, and we came from all around. Let's try it from the beginning. Oh, when the Angles came to town, oh, when the Angles came to town. Oh, there were so many of us, and we came from all around. When Ulrich came from Switzerland, he brought his wife and family. Sing it out. When Ulrich came from Switzerland, he brought his wife and family. He came to worship God in freedom and to live in harmony. Let's do that, the whole thing. When Ulrich came from Switzerland, he brought his wife and family. He came to worship God in freedom and to live in harmony. He bought some land in Lancaster County. He cleared the land and made a farm. Okay, everybody. He bought some land in Lancaster County. He cleared the land and made a farm. Then he built a lovely stone house. Then he built a big old barn. Now, I don't know how much time we have. I'm not going to have us repeat all of it, but I want you to hear some more. Then we'll do some more.
Plenty of time.
Okay, plenty of time, he said. We'll do that all together. When Ulrich Jr.'s daddy died, he was asked to run the farm. He was just the age of 14. He kept his family out of harm. Everybody, when Ingalls found some land way out west in Abilene, they brought their families and their preacher. They worked together as a team. Everybody. Many Anglos stayed with farming, some went into business too. And the Lord called some into preaching to serve the Lord in all they do. They spread across this glorious land from sea to shining sea. And the Anglos raised their families to be the best that they could be. And the first verse as the last. Oh, when the Anglos came to town, and there are so many of us, and we come from all around. Here we go, everybody together. And
when the Anglos came to town, when the Anglos came to town, then there were so many of us, and we come from all around.
Good job.
Marietta train station, we won't be able to make that stop today, but the Marietta train station is important to us as a family because that's where back in the probably
79, 80.
79, 80, the major migration, but even through the early 70s and probably into the late 80s, people left from this area, went out west. The major migration started in 79, a group gathered, about 300 and some odd people gathered at the train like I said, one of these Pennsylvania Standard trains that was headed for Abilene. The report has it that there were 13 passenger cars on that train, 2 baggage cars, and probably an express car of some sort. If you go by that station, it's boarded up now. The tracks have been ripped up from in front of it, but you can imagine 300 some odd people down there boarding the train. There were not only Ingalls, but there were Heise's, Wildermoos, a whole almost everyone that
Eisenhower, Musser. Eisenhower, Musser.
We had the Eisenhower Mussers that joined that group. What's interesting about the train station also is that it was built as an adjunct to the house across the street. If you go to see the train station across the street, there's a place called the Railroad House. It's now a bed and breakfast. That was the original train station in Marietta. It was built in the early 1850s and served as a train station, a hotel for the railroad crews, and a general store. It wasn't until after 1850 that the station, the formal station house, was built across the street, and it also handled freight for the community. But John Musser Ingle was, like I said, that would have been my great-great-grandfather, and he and his family moved out to as part of the Kansas settlement, but we don't have any record that shows that he was part of the 79 migration. But he left here along with several other settlers and went out with the rest of the group. John Musser,
this is the high school, and it's right there.
His house is right across the street from his father's house, Jacob Ingle. They are both, if you go out into them, you'll find there's heavy equipment around the house, so you have to be careful on both sides of the street. Both have heavy equipment in there, and the owners respectfully request that you be careful as you walk, if you are in fact going to walk out in that area. As we come back to the church, I want to take a moment here to acknowledge a couple of people that are on our bus that have done a lot of work for us. Would Tanya Ingle and Jeremy Ingle and Dennis and Charlie, please make yourselves known. These are the people. These are the people that have put this map together. The map is a work of art, in my opinion. We credit the ABC or the ADC map company as possibly they're probably the proprietary owners of it. But Charlie and his crew printed up a great tour guide here for us, modifying the ADC maps.
And the newsletter.
You will also be in your registration package receiving a copy of what is now the draft of our genealogy update. They also printed that for us. The cover, I believe, was done by, was this Tanya? Were you the one that did that? Thank you, young lady.
And Don Scanlon's on the bus and should get credit for photographs. I think he's on. Maybe not. Maybe not. I guess he didn't come.
Charlie, is Don Scanlon on this bus also?
No, he's not.
Right, give him credit.
Don Scanlon did the photography for both this book as well as the map.
And they do the newsletters too. Tell them that.
This is also the group that publishes our newsletter. So we're grateful to Charlie Ingle and his entire family. Members are invited to the member meeting tonight at the school. We'll be going over the organizational issues, election of officers.
What time?
7 o'clock at the school. Let's see, what else? Ladies and gentlemen, we also, while you have been great participants, one of the things we do, we've got a great bus driver here who has had to deal with all of our idiosyncrasies. I would like for you to give him a hand also. I would also respectfully like to request, we'd like to tip the guy. He's done a lot of work for us. We're going to pass a hat as you come out. Please make a donation if you feel so moved. Thank you.
Don't forget your book if you haven't bought one.
I usually get the microphone before these guys get talking, and I never gave everybody my name. My name is Lou. I drive for Clemens Tours, as you can see. It was a pleasure driving you around. I hope you had a good time and enjoy the rest of your week.